They all scoffed when a wheelchair-bound millionaire adopted an autistic girl, but were shocked when they discovered she's an incredible genius. A story that proves the greatest limitations aren't in our bodies, but in how society perceives difference. This heartwarming story of overcoming obstacles, redemption, and love will change the way you see the world forever. Nobody could have imagined what would happen next. Get ready, because this story will touch your heart. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment where you're watching from. Beautiful people. The clock on the wall of Ulysses Montgomery's office read 3 in the afternoon when his secretary came in, holding a manila envelope. The woman's face reflected a certain unease. "Mr. Montgomery, this just arrived from the adoption center." Ulysses swiveled his wheelchair towards her. Despite the disability that had been with him since the accident, his presence emanated an authority that quickly made most people forget about the chair. His broad shoulders and sharply defined features, framed by dark hair with some premature grey, conveyed a strength that contrasted with the fragility of his immobile legs. "Thank you, Eva. You can leave it here." Once alone, Ulysses contemplated the envelope for a few minutes. Inside was information that could change his life forever. He took a deep breath and opened it. Photographs of 5 children waiting for adoption scattered across his mahogany desk, each with their own story, each needing a home. His eyes stopped on the last photograph, a girl with golden hair and deep blue eyes that weren't looking at the camera, but at an undefined point in space. There was something in her distant gaze that captivated him. Sonia Vargas, 7 years old, severe autism, difficulty with social interaction and limited verbal communication, he read quietly. Something about that girl, as lost in her own world, as he had been after the accident, struck a chord in his heart. He picked up the phone and dialed a number. "Matt, get the car ready. We're going out." The New Beginnings Adoption Center was located on the outskirts of the city, in an old but well-maintained building. When Ulysses entered, propelling his wheelchair, looks of astonishment were not unexpected. It wasn't every day that a multimillionaire businessman visited that place. Gabrielle Ortiz, the center's director, greeted him with a strained smile. She was a middle-aged woman with a kind face marked by worry. "Mr. Montgomery, it's an honor to have you here," she said, guiding him towards her office. "Though I must admit your call took us by surprise." "I want to meet Sonia," Ulysses replied without mincing words. "The autistic girl." Gabriel's smile faltered. "Mr. Montgomery, I understand your interest, but Sonia is a special case. She requires specific care, constant attention. Her condition is—" She searched for the right words. "Challenging. For any parent, even those without physical limitations." Ulysses stared at her with those penetrating green eyes that had made executives and competitors tremble in the boardroom. "Ms. Ortiz, I lost the use of my legs, not my capacity to love or care for someone, and I have the resources to give that girl everything she needs." Gabriel nodded uncomfortably. "Of course, I didn't mean to imply. Please follow me." She led him through hallways decorated with children's drawings to a quiet room at the end of the building. There, sitting by the window, was Sonia. The girl didn't turn when they entered. She was absorbed in drawing complex geometric patterns in a notebook with a surprising precision for her age. Her golden hair fell like a cascade over her shoulders, and her small hands moved with the grace of a pianist on the paper. "She's been like this all morning," Gabrielle explained quietly. "She can spend hours drawing these patterns. The doctors say it's part of her condition." Ulysses approached slowly, observing the drawings over the girl's shoulder. They weren't simple childish scribbles. They were complex mathematical structures, fractals that repeated with perfect symmetry. "May I?" he asked, extending his hand towards one of the finished drawings. Sonia didn't respond, but she didn't object when Ulysses took the paper. He studied it carefully, recognizing patterns he had seen in advanced mathematics books. "This is extraordinary," he murmured. "Has anyone taught her mathematics?" Gabrielle shook her head. "No one. She started drawing these patterns when she was just 4 years old. Psychologists say it could be a case of savant syndrome, but it's difficult to assess her due to her limited verbal communication. Ulysses looked back at the girl, who was still immersed in her own world. "Sonia," he called gently. For the first time, the girl stopped drawing. She didn't look at him directly, but tilted her head slightly as if acknowledging his presence. "My name is Ulysses. Your drawings are very beautiful." Silence. Then, to Gabriel's surprise, Sonia took another piece of paper and began to draw something new. A wheelchair. "Impressive," Gabriel whispered. "She almost never responds to strangers." Ulysses smiled. In that moment, he made a decision that would change his life forever. "I want to adopt Sonia." The news that Ulysses Montgomery, the country's most successful tech entrepreneur, was in the process of adopting an autistic girl spread like wildfire. The media exploded with speculation, and the social circles of the elite were quick to fill their dinner party conversations with snide remarks. "Have you heard about Montgomery?" asked Oswald Reeves, one of Ulysses' partners, during a cocktail party at the business club. "It seems he's finally lost it, adopting a child when he can barely take care of himself." "It's a publicity stunt," suggested Carol Mendoza, raising her champagne glass. "He needs to improve his image after the scandal with the minority shareholders. Or maybe he's just desperate for an heir now that his condition prevents him from, having children of his own," someone else added, provoking discreet laughter. What none of them knew was that Quentin Vega, Ulysses's personal assistant, was just a few feet away, listening to every word. Jaw tight, he approached the group. "Mr. Reeves, Ms. Mendoza," he interrupted with a cold voice. "Mr. Montgomery sends his apologies for not being able to attend tonight. He is busy preparing for his daughter's arrival." The silence that followed was almost tangible. Quentin continued with a slight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "By the way, Mr. Montgomery would appreciate it if you kept your theories about his motives to yourselves, or better yet, discussed them directly with him at the next board meeting." Leaving pale faces behind, Quentin left the room, dialing a number on his phone. "How's everything going?" Ulysses asked when he answered. "Everything according to plan, sir, although your partners seem to have interesting opinions about your decision." A sigh on the other end of the line. "That was to be expected. How is Sarah doing with the preparations?" "Ms. Torres has completely transformed the east wing of the mansion. I believe she has researched every aspect of autism that exists in the medical literature." Sarah Torres, the occupational therapist Ulysses had hired to help with Sonia's transition, had quickly become a key member of the team. Her exotic beauty contrasted with her practical approach and her absolute dedication to the girl's well-being. "Good," Ulysses replied. "Sonia arrives tomorrow. I want everything to be perfect." The day of Sonia's arrival dawned bright and clear. Ulysses, who rarely showed nervousness, found himself checking every detail again and again. "The room is too stimulating," he muttered, looking at the carefully selected toys. "Sarah said we should start with a calm environment." "Everything is perfect," Matt, his driver, and one of his oldest and most loyal employees, reassured him. "The girl will be fine." When the adoption center's car finally arrived, Ulysses went out to greet them, his heart pounding. Gabriel helped, Sonia out, and the girl stood still, staring at the enormous mansion in front of her. "Welcome home, Sonia," Ulysses said, approaching slowly. To everyone's surprise, the girl walked straight to him and touched the wheel of his chair, as if recognizing him. Then she took a drawing out of her small backpack. It was a perfect portrait of Ulysses in his wheelchair, with surprising photographic precision. "It's incredible," Gabrielle murmured. "I've never seen her interact like that with anyone." Ulysses took the drawing with trembling hands. "Thank you, Sonia, it's beautiful." The girl didn't respond, but for a moment her blue eyes met Ulysses's, and he felt a deep connection, as if they both recognized something in each other. Two souls who understood what it meant to be different in a world that valued uniformity. At that moment, as the sunlight bathed the scene in golden tones, Ulysses knew he had made the right decision. It didn't matter what others said. It didn't matter what challenges were to come. This extraordinary girl was now his daughter, and he would move heaven and earth to give her the home she deserved. What none could imagine then was that this was just the beginning of a story that would defy all expectations and change the lives of everyone involved forever. Because behind those blue eyes that rarely made contact hid a mind whose true potential was about to be revealed. Sonia's first weeks at the Montgomery mansion passed in a delicate balance between adaptation and discovery. Sarah had transformed a room into a sensory space where the girl could retreat when the outside world became too overwhelming. The pastel-colored walls, the soft lighting, and the carefully selected tactile objects created a sanctuary where Sonia found peace. Ulysses, for his part, completely adjusted his routine. The meetings that used to fill his schedule from dawn to dusk were now concentrated in the hours when Sonia attended her sessions with Sarah. The evenings, formerly dedicated to reviewing reports, were now spent watching his daughter draw or simply sitting beside her in silence, a silence that, strangely, never felt uncomfortable. "It's amazing," Sarah commented one afternoon, as they watched Sonia work on a new drawing from the doorway of the room. "Most people feel compelled to fill the silence with words. You seem to understand that she doesn't need that." Ulysses smiled slightly. "After the accident, when everyone visited me in the hospital and talked non-stop about how everything would be all right, all I wanted was silence. I think Sonia and I understand each other in that respect." Sarah nodded, observing the man next to her with new eyes. Beneath that facade of a ruthless businessman was a sensitivity that few knew. "There have been remarkable advances," Sarah continued. "Her drawings are becoming increasingly complex, and yesterday she responded to a direct question. It's a big step." What Sarah didn't mention, but they both knew, was that every small advance was accompanied by skeptical looks and snide comments from the outside world. The mandatory visits from social workers always left a trail of tension in the house. Although the mansion had all the necessary adaptations for Ulysses to move freely, and the specialized equipment for Sonia far exceeded any expectations, doubts about the ability of a man in a wheelchair to raise an autistic girl persisted like a constant murmur. One morning, while Ulysses was working in his office, the door opened gently. Sonia came in with her drawing notebook in hand. She approached the desk and, to Ulysses's surprise, left the notebook in front of him and opened it. They weren't her usual geometric patterns. This time she had drawn diagrams that looked like blueprints. Ulysses examined them with growing attention. They were sketches of a device drawn with astonishing precision for a girl her age. They seemed to be prototypes for improving his wheelchair. "Did you do this, Sonia?" he asked. His voice hushed. The girl didn't respond verbally, but pointed to one of the drawings and then touched the wheel of Ulysses's chair. "Do you want to improve my chair?" An almost imperceptible nod. Ulysses felt his heart race. It was the first time Sonia had initiated an interaction with a clear purpose. "Can I show this to someone? To Quentin, perhaps?" Sonia didn't respond, but she didn't object when Ulysses took the notebook. He immediately called his assistant, who appeared minutes later with his usual efficiency. "Do you need anything, sir?" "Quentin, look at this," Ulysses said, handing him the notebook. Sonia drew it. Quentin studied the sketches with an increasingly astonished expression. "This is extraordinary. These are improvements to the suspension system of your chair, and this appears to be a completely new design for the propulsion mechanism." He looked up, genuinely impressed. "Sir, these designs are at an advanced engineering level." Ulysses looked at his daughter, who had returned to her distant posture, seemingly uninterested in the conversation. "Do you think they could work? I'd have to consult with the engineers, but at first glance they seem like solid concepts." Quentin hesitated for a moment. "Sir, if these designs are viable—" "I know," Ulysses interrupted, a smile forming on his lips. "We could be looking at something revolutionary." The news that Ulysses Montgomery was developing a new prototype of an advanced wheelchair quickly leaked into business circles. What no one knew was that the mind behind the innovations was that of an autistic girl who barely spoke. One afternoon, while the engineers were working on the prototype based on Sonia's designs, Beatrice Lopez, the teacher assigned by the school district to assess the girl's academic progress, arrived at the mansion. Beatrice was an attractive woman with a stern face, known for her rigor and her traditional approach to education. From the beginning, she had made clear her skepticism about the idea of homeschooling Sonia. "Mr. Montgomery," she began after the formal greetings, "I have reviewed the progress reports that Miss Torres has sent me. They are interesting, but I'm afraid they don't reflect true educational advancement according to established standards." Ulysses, who had learned to control his temper since Sonia's arrival, responded with calculated calm. "How about you? Observe Sonia yourself during her session today. Perhaps that will give you a clearer perspective." Beatrice reluctantly agreed. Sarah had already prepared the study room where Sonia was waiting, sitting in front of a laptop. "We wouldn't normally recommend so much screen time," Beatrice commented critically, "especially for a girl with—" Her words died when she saw what Sonia was doing. The screen showed complex mathematical equations, and the girl was solving them at an impressive speed, moving her fingers across the keyboard with absolute precision. "That's differential calculus?" Beatrice asked incredulously. "And some linear algebra," confirmed Sarah, unable to hide a satisfied smile. "Sonia has shown a natural affinity for mathematics. Her mind processes patterns and structures in a way that many mathematical geniuses would recognize." Beatrice approached to observe better, her skepticism giving way to genuine fascination. "This is extraordinary. Have you conducted formal tests? Any standardized assessments?" "Traditional tests don't work well with Sonia," explained Ulysses, approaching in his chair. "Her way of communicating is different, but the results speak for themselves." Changing his focus, Ulysses addressed his daughter. "Sonia, could you show Ms. Lopez your special project?" For a moment it seemed the girl hadn't heard. Then, with deliberate movements, she closed the math program and opened another. The screen filled with what appeared to be three-dimensional blueprints of the wheelchair she had designed. "This is the project she has been working on," Ulysses explained. "A new type of wheelchair with an advanced suspension system and improved propulsion." Beatrice watched with her mouth slightly open. "Are you saying she designed this? A girl of her age?" "She not only designed it," intervened Sarah, "but she has corrected errors that the engineers themselves hadn't detected. Her intuitive understanding of physics and mechanics is simply astonishing." Beatrice sat down, clearly overwhelmed. "Mr. Montgomery, what we have here is not just a girl with special needs. We are talking about a genius, possibly on par with great minds in history." Silence resonated in the room as everyone processed the weight of those words. Sonia, oblivious to the commotion she had caused, had returned to her math program, immersed in a world of numbers and patterns that only she fully understood. The wheelchair prototype designed by Sonia was completed in record time. The engineers, initially skeptical about following the designs of a child, were amazed by the elegance and efficiency of her solutions. On the day of the first test, the tension was palpable in the mansion. Ulysses, sitting in the development lab he had installed in the basement, watched as the technicians made the final adjustments to the prototype. "Everything is ready, sir," announced Quentin. "If you wish to proceed—" Ulysses looked at Sonia, who was watching everything from a corner, seemingly absorbed in tracing invisible patterns in the air with her fingers. But he had learned to recognize the subtle signs, the slight tilt of her head, the way her eyes moved quickly. She was fully attentive to what was happening. "Go ahead," Ulysses indicated. With Matt's help, he transferred to the new chair. He immediately noticed the difference. The stability, the response to his movements, everything was revolutionary. He took a test run around the lab, negotiating obstacles that previously would have required complex maneuvers with astonishing ease. "It's incredible," he murmured, genuinely impressed. He stopped in front of Sonia. "It worked perfectly. Your design is perfect." The girl finally looked up, and for a moment her blue eyes met Ulysses's directly. A fleeting but deep connection. "Thank you, Dad," she said, in a clear and melodious voice, before returning to her usual silence. The lab fell into absolute silence. It was the first time Sonia had called Ulysses Dad. the first time she had verbally expressed that connection that had grown between them. The businessman, known for his composure in the most difficult negotiations, felt tears threatening to escape his eyes. Quentin, ever attentive, broke the silence. "Sir, I think this deserves a celebration. After all, it's not every day that assistive technology is revolutionized." Ulysses nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "Yes, a celebration, but family, just us." He looked at everyone present: Quentin, Matt, Sarah, and of course Sonia. "My family." The news of the revolutionary wheelchair design developed by Montgomery Technologies quickly made headlines in the specialized press. Rumors about a brilliant mind behind the project began to circulate, but Ulysses, protecting Sonia from public attention, simply attributed the success to his team of engineers. However, the skeptical looks of the past began to transform into looks of admiration. Those who had ridiculed Ulysses's decision now watched with fascination the change in the businessman and the successes his company was achieving. One afternoon, while Ulysses was working in his office, he received a call from Oswald Reeves, one of the partners who had most openly questioned his decision to adopt Sonia. "Ulysses, the results of the last quarter are impressive," Oswald began without preamble. "The advanced wheelchair prototype has generated more interest than we anticipated, and I've heard rumors about other projects in development." "We're taking it one step at a time, Oswald," Ulysses interrupted, with a smile that his caller couldn't see. "But yes, there are more innovations on the way." "I wanted to apologize," Oswald continued, his voice lower, "for what I said when you adopted the girl. I was wrong." Ulysses allowed himself to briefly savor the satisfaction of this recognition. "Thank you, Oswald, but you don't owe me the apology." After hanging up, Ulysses reflected on all that had changed in his life since Sonia's arrival. The girl whom many considered a burden had brought not only innovation to his company, but something much more valuable. She had returned to his heart a capacity to love and connect that he believed lost after the accident. What no one suspected was that this was just the beginning. Sonia's extraordinary mind was only beginning to reveal its potential, and the world wasn't prepared for what would come next. The Montgomery mansion had been transformed. What was once an elegant but cold space now overflowed with life. The hallways that used to be silent now resonated with Sonia's soft humming when she was focused on some project. The walls, previously decorated with impersonal works of art, now proudly displayed the girl's intricate drawings and designs. The success of the wheelchair prototype had been only the beginning. In the following months, Sonia continued to surprise everyone with her brilliance. Her designs weren't limited to improving Ulysses's mobility. She had begun to develop adaptive interfaces for people with different types of disabilities. One spring morning, while Ulysses was enjoying his coffee on the terrace, watching Sonia drawing quietly in the garden, Quentin approached with a worried expression. "Sir, we have a situation," he said in a low voice. "A letter has arrived from the courthouse. It's about Sonia." Ulysses felt his stomach clench. "What's wrong?" "Apparently," Quentin hesitated, "some biological relatives of Sonia have appeared. They are challenging the adoption, claiming they weren't properly notified when the girl entered the system." Ulysses tightened his fists on the armrest of his chair. "Who are they? Why are they showing up now?" "Beatrice and Richard Vargas. They are the brother and sister-in-law of Sonia's biological mother. According to the documents, they were living abroad when Sonia was orphaned. They claim they only recently learned of her situation." Ulysses looked at his daughter, who continued to draw, oblivious to the storm brewing. "What do they know about Sonia's condition, about her special needs?" "They don't mention it in the petition," Quentin replied. "But they have hired the law firm Fernandez and Associates. They are known for taking high-visibility cases and cases that involve a lot of money," Ulysses completed bitterly. "Contact our legal team immediately, and I want everything you can find about these Vargases, where they've been, what they do, everything." As Quentin retreated, Ulysses watched Sonia with a mixture of love and concern. He wouldn't allow anyone to take her away from him, not now, when she had finally found her place in the world, when they both had finally found the family they needed. The news of the legal dispute over Sonia's custody was quick to leak to the press. "Millionaire in battle to keep his autistic adoptive daughter," read the headlines. Speculation about the motives of the biological relatives flooded the media, with theories ranging from genuine family interest to blatant greed. Sarah, who had become a constant and comforting presence for both Ulysses and Sonia, watched everything with growing indignation. "It's absurd," she exclaimed one afternoon while reading the latest sensationalist article. "How can they even consider separating them after all the progress Sonia has made here?" Ulysses, who was reviewing documents with his lawyer, looked up. "The system doesn't always prioritize what's best for the child, Sarah. Sometimes blood ties weigh more than emotional well-being." The therapist approached, placing a hand on Ulysses's shoulder in a gesture of support that had become natural between them. "We'll fight then, all of us, for Sonia." Ulysses's lawyer, a man with sharp features and piercing eyes, nodded. "And we have strong arguments. Sonia's progress under your care is undeniable. The medical reports, the educational assessments, everything indicates that this is the ideal environment for her." Ulysses looked towards the room where Sonia was working alongside the engineers on a new project. Through the glass, he could see her explaining something with hand movements, more communicative than she had ever been at the adoption center. "It's not just that," he said finally. "Sonia has found her voice here, not only literally, although she speaks more every day, but her purpose. She is using her brilliant mind to help others. I won't allow her to be taken away from that." The determination in his voice was palpable. This wasn't just Ulysses Montgomery, the ruthless businessman. It was Ulysses, the father, willing to do anything to protect his daughter. The first hearing in family court was a media circus. Photographers and journalists crowded the entrance, eager to capture the drama of millionaire versus biological family. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Beatrice and Richard Vargas, an elegant, middle-aged couple, sitting on the other side of the room, bore no resemblance to the image of greedy relatives that Ulysses had imagined. Their faces reflected genuine emotion when Sonia entered, accompanied by Sarah. The judge, a woman with a stern face but compassionate gaze, began by explaining the purpose of the hearing. "We are here to determine what is best for the minor, Sonia Vargas, now legally Sonia Montgomery. I want to make clear from the beginning that this court is not interested in the media spectacle that has been generated, but solely in the well-being of the child." The lawyers presented their opening arguments. The representative of the Vargases emphasized blood ties, the importance of the biological family, and Sonia's right to know her roots. "My clients aren't questioning the care that Mr. Montgomery has provided," he concluded, "but they firmly believe that Sonia should grow up knowing her family history, surrounded by those who share her blood and can understand her needs in a way that a stranger, however well-intentioned, cannot." Ulysses's lawyer countered with solid evidence of Sonia's progress, medical reports, specialist testimonies, and even a video showing the girl explaining one of her designs, speaking more fluently than she had ever shown before arriving at the Montgomery mansion. "Your Honor, separating her now from the environment that has allowed this evolution would be traumatic and potentially devastating to her development." The judge listened attentively, asking precise questions to both sides. Finally, she addressed Sonia, who had remained silent, drawing in her notebook. "Sonia, I know it's sometimes difficult to express what you feel with words, but I would like to know if there is anything you want to tell me about where you would prefer to live." The room fell silent. Even the reporters, who were frantically taking notes, stopped their pens. Sonia looked up from her notebook. Her blue eyes scanned the room, stopping briefly on Beatrice and Richard, then on Sarah, and finally on Ulysses. When she spoke, her voice was soft but clear. "I want to stay with my dad." 5 simple words that brought tears to the eyes of more than one in the room. The judge nodded with a moved expression. "Thank you, Sonia. I will take your opinion very seriously." At the conclusion of the hearing, the judge announced that she would need time to review all the documentation before making a decision. In the meantime, Sonia would remain in Ulysses's custody. Outside the courthouse, Ulysses came face to face with Beatrice and Richard Vargas. For an awkward moment, no one knew what to say. It was Richard who broke the silence. Mr. Montgomery, my wife and I only want what's best for Sonia. She's all we have left of her mother. When we learned of her existence—" "I understand," Ulysses interrupted, his voice softer than he expected. "I also want what's best for her. That's why I can't give up this fight." Beatrice, with eyes shining with suppressed tears, looked towards where Sonia was waiting alongside Sarah. "She looks so much like Mary, my sister. But there's something else in her, something special that doesn't come from our family." "She's extraordinary," Ulysses agreed. "Her mind works in ways that amaze even the specialists." A moment of understanding passed between them, a mutual recognition of the love they felt for the girl. And then Beatrice said something that would change the course of everything. Would it be possible to get to know her better, without courts or lawyers involved? Maybe we could find a solution that doesn't involve taking her away from the home where she has flourished. Beatrice's proposal led to a series of supervised visits where the Vargases could get to know Sonia better and the environment that Ulysses had created for her. They were amazed by the adapted lab, the projects in development, and above all, with the evident complicity between Ulysses and the girl. "It's as if they communicate without words sometimes," Richard commented to Sarah during one of the visits. "I've never seen an autistic child connect like that with someone." "Because Ulysses doesn't try to change her," Sarah explained. "He accepts her way of being and has built a world where she can express herself in her own way." Meanwhile, Sonia, initially reluctant with her aunt and uncle, began to open up gradually. She showed them her drawings, her designs, even the prototype of a communication device for non-verbal people she was working on. "It's impressive," Beatrice said, genuinely marveling. Mary would be so proud of her. One afternoon, while Sonia was working with one of the engineers, Beatrice approached Ulysses in his office. "We've been thinking, Richard and I, maybe we were wrong to frame this as a battle. Seeing Sonia here, seeing how she has progressed, we could never offer her all of this." Ulysses observed her, cautious but hopeful. "What are you considering exactly?" "Withdrawing our petition for custody," Beatrice replied, with a firm voice. "But with one condition, that you allow us to be part of her life. Not as primary caregivers, but as extended family. Aunt and uncle who visit, who share holidays, who can tell her about her biological mother when she's ready to hear it." Ulysses felt an enormous weight lift from his shoulders. It wasn't just the relief of not losing Sonia, it was the possibility of offering her something that he alone couldn't: connection with her past, with her roots. "I think we can reach an agreement that benefits everyone," he said, extending his hand, "especially Sonia." The resolution of the case didn't receive as much media attention as its beginning, but for everyone involved, it represented the true triumph. A legal agreement that recognized Ulysses as Sonia's official adoptive father, with regular visitation rights for Beatrice and Richard. Life at the Montgomery mansion found a new balance. Weekends with the aunt and uncle became a routine that Sonia looked forward to. Beatrice, who had been an art teacher before her marriage, discovered a special connection with Sonia through drawing. Richard, a retired engineer, was fascinated with his niece's technical ideas. "It's the best we could have hoped for," Sarah commented to Ulysses as they watched Sonia show her aunt and uncle her latest project. "She has the best of both worlds, the stability and resources that you provide, and the connection with her family history." Ulysses nodded thoughtfully. "You know, when I decided to adopt Sonia, many thought it was for publicity or for a passing charitable impulse. No one believed that a man in my condition could be a good father, let alone to a child with special needs. And you've proven everyone wrong," Sarah completed with a warm smile. "What I didn't tell them, what I've never told anyone," Ulysses continued, his voice lower, "is that I adopted her because when I saw her for the first time, in that quiet room at the adoption center, I saw something of myself in her. That loneliness, that different way of seeing the world. I thought I could understand her better than most." "And you were right," Sarah affirmed, placing her hand over his, a gesture that had become frequent between them. "What I didn't anticipate was how much she would change me. Before Sonia, my life was the company, the acquisitions, the next deal. Now," he gestured, encompassing the scene before them. Sonia laughing with her aunt and uncle, the garden full of light. The mansion once cold, now brimming with life. Now I understand what really matters. Sarah looked at him with a mixture of admiration and something more, something that had been growing between them for months. You've created something beautiful here, Ulysses, a family. He turned his hand under hers, interlacing their fingers. We created it. You, me, Quentin, Matt, even Beatrice and Richard now. We've all built this together for Sonia. The look they shared was full of unspoken promises, of a future that was only just beginning to be glimpsed. One winter morning, almost 2 years after Sonia's arrival at the mansion, Montgomery Technologies officially presented its line of adaptive technology, designed specifically for people with different types of disabilities. The launch event, more intimate than it would have been in Ulysses's pre-Sonia era, was attended by representatives from disability organizations, specialized journalists, and of course, the entire Montgomery family. Ulysses, using the most advanced version of the chair designed by Sonia, took to the small platform. By his side, to the surprise of many, was Sonia, elegant in a blue dress that highlighted her eyes. She was no longer the shy and silent girl from the adoption center. Now, despite her autism, she had found ways to connect with the world on her own terms. Good morning, everyone, Ulysses began. Today we are presenting a line of products that I hope will transform the lives of many people. But before I talk about technology, I want to talk about perception. He paused, looking at his daughter with pride. When I decided to adopt Sonia, many doubted. They doubted that a man in a wheelchair could be a good father. They doubted that an autistic girl could flourish in an unconventional home. Even I doubted in my darkest moments. A murmur ran through the room. Ulysses Montgomery rarely spoke of his vulnerabilities. But what we didn't understand then, what we are beginning to understand now, is that the greatest limitations aren't in our bodies or in our different minds. They are in how society perceives difference. He gestured towards the screens where the new devices were being shown. This technology doesn't seek to cure or normalize. It seeks to build bridges, to allow each person to express their unique potential in their own way. And all this, his voice filled with emotion, all this began with the designs of Sonia, a girl whom many considered limited, but whose brilliant mind is changing the world. Sonia, noticing her father's emotion, put a hand on his shoulder. A simple but powerful gesture that made more than one eye in the audience moisten. So today we're not just launching products, we're launching a new way of thinking, one that celebrates diversity, that recognizes that there are many ways to be brilliant, many ways to contribute, many ways to love. He looked towards the first row, where Sarah, now his fiancée, watched him with shining eyes. Beside her, Beatrice and Richard smiled with pride. A little further back, Quentin and Matt, silent but fundamental pillars of the extended family they had built. And for that reason, the first product we present today is named Project Sonia, because it is a reminder that sometimes what seems like an insurmountable challenge can be, in reality, the greatest gift. As applause filled the room, Ulysses felt Sonia's hand squeeze his slightly. They didn't need words to communicate. They had developed their own language of gestures, looks, and shared silences. In that moment, he remembered that day at the INGLES adoption center, when everyone thought he was making a mistake. He remembered the looks of pity, the veiled warnings, the suppressed laughter. And now here they were. Not only had they overcome every obstacle, but they had transformed those challenges into opportunities to grow, to create, to inspire others. "Dad," Sonia whispered with that melodious voice she used more and more, "did we do good?" Ulysses felt his heart swell with pride and love. "We did perfectly, my little genius, perfectly." And as they descended from the platform, surrounded by applause and congratulations, Ulysses knew for certain that that decision, taken almost by instinct in a moment of inexplicable connection with a silent girl, had been not only the bravest, but also the wisest of his entire life. Because sometimes the brightest lights emerge from the most unexpected places, and sometimes the most beautiful families aren't those that are born of blood, but those that are built with love, patience, and the unwavering will to see beyond appearances, to the very heart of what really matters.